I was 5 years old when I almost got kicked out from kindergarten. Not for fighting or for breaking up things, but for trying to run an illegal shop. You see, I wanted new toys, so I did what seemed logical to me. I went home, grabbed a shoebox and all my old toys, went to the playground and started shouting. This one is 50 cents. This one is 50. Within minutes, I had a crowd around me and I was so happy. Until the lady that was responsible to oversee all of us came to see what the hell was happening. And I personally thought she was going to congratulate me. Instead, by the end of the day, I was in the principal's office with my parents beside me, and I was wondering why everyone looked so upset. This tendency didn't change as I grew older. Even when I became head of human resources at the fast-growing startup, I became responsible for the learning development of 150 people. So we started creating week-long trainings. And I remember thinking to myself, they are working so hard, I want to do something for them. Let me take them to my favorite restaurant. What I forgot to mention was that the restaurant was covered in graffiti, had no bathrooms, and it wasn't entirely legal either, honestly. Quite funny if you think about it, a responsible HR leading his team to a safe hazard environment. Thankfully, everyone loved it, and no bathrooms were necessary that night. But it isn't all funny stories. With that way of thinking came a feeling that I didn't belong for some reason. There is a story that I keep coming back to. I was 18, maybe 19, and I was going through a very, very serious and deep depressive episode. I remember one time in particular, one afternoon, I forced myself into the shower. I turned on the hot water, felt it on my back, and closed my eyes. And what I saw genuinely scared me. Nothing. No emotions, no thoughts, pure darkness, a void. You see, I had run out of hope. Hope to build a meaningful future, hope for a better life. But what stayed with me wasn't the void itself, because unfortunately I've become quite familiar with it over the years. What stayed with me was remembering and thinking to myself, I don't want to be remembered like this. So I remember making a promise to myself, and even if I only see darkness right now, when the moment that I see the tiniest cracks of light, I am going to grab it with everything that I have. And I honestly did. So what I'm about to share with you guys is a journey of a very chaotic person trying to figure out his way out of his own chaos by answering one single question. How can I, chaos again, how can I make better decisions in a reality that feels completely out of control? And funny enough, I found the answer in chaos itself. But what is chaos? What does it mean? If I ask every single one of you to describe chaos in one word, I'm going to get answers like confusion, disorder, anxiety, burnout. Some optimists in the room might even say excitement, opportunity, and creativity. And to be honest, none of you are wrong. Chaos is deeply personal. Each and every single one of us has their own interpretation of chaos. For some of you might be a car that's making a weird noise, while for others might be a baby that is also making a weird noise at 3 a.m., waking you up. But to answer my own question, I needed an actual definition of the concept. So I went searching into the easiest place possible, the dictionary. So, Merriam-Webster defines chaos as a state of things in which change is supreme, or the inherent unpredictability in the behavior of a complex natural system. Every time I read sentences like this, I think of the words of Winnie the Pooh. I am a bear of very little brain, and long words bother me, honestly. I was never trying to pursue an academic career, so as I conducted my own research, I needed to find ways to simplify concepts. So let's break this definition down with an exercise. Take a look at your hands and touch them. Go ahead, actually touch them. I apologize in advance if you leave with a CD, but right now you're touching billions of bacteria and cells colliding with each other. No matter how many times you wash your hands, they are still going to be there. Now, expand that idea to this room. The atoms, the ideas, the hundreds of people, each colliding and influencing each other in ways that we can never fully understand, predict, or control. That is chaos. Chaos is change, constantly bombarding us, mostly outside of our control, which makes us feel in chaos. And that brings me to the last definition in the same dictionary, and arguably the most important one: a state of utter confusion. You see, reality is chaotic and there's nothing we can do about it. But feeling in control, that's a skill. And it is the very foundation of your well-being, confidence, and ability to make good decisions in uncertain environments. The problem is that every single day right now feels uncertain. So we do what seems more logical to us. We try to keep up, hoping that we look more in control than we actually feel. I believe that's literally driving us all insane. Which brings me to the same question as before with a simple modification. Not this, but how can we make better decisions in a reality that feels completely out of control? And I found the answer in the most unexpected way. Let me show you with a question. Thank you. Okay. Let me show you the question. How many hairdressers do you think there are in Tokyo? Random question, I know. But take your best guess and keep it in your mind. Don't use your phone, Google or ChatGPT, okay? How many hairdressers do you think there are in Tokyo? This is known as a Fermi problem, where the goal isn't to be precisely correct, but to be vaguely right. Now, I must confess to you, I have no idea. I don't know how many addresses there are in Tokyo, and every time I say similar words while doing a similar exercise, I have at least one person quietly trying to reach out to the phone and seek for the answer. Is anyone already doing that here? I would understand completely. It seems there is a nagging voice inside of our minds that needs to know the answer, that eagers to know the answer. But why? Because we have been conditioned our whole lives to seek for certainty. Education, the pursuit of the perfect grade, the golden star student. Work, we are forced ourselves to show our value every single day, or risk becoming invisible or even worse, redundant. Even in politics, we were able to squeeze the extraordinary complexity of human ideology into two tiny boxes, left and right, us and the others. Reality is not black and white. It is messy, uncontrollable, and fundamentally chaotic, now more than ever. Which makes me believe this is exactly the time to start thinking of what it means to redesign our lives, schools, hospitals, organizations, and honestly, even entire governments, to stop seeking impossible certainty and finally acknowledging that we are never meant to be in control in the first place. To learn to master chaos. But where do we begin? I believe the answer might be closer than we expect. It is in the oldest tool that humanity has ever used to manage change, in what we normally call stories. Stories about who you are, what you want, and what you believe. So funny enough, the art of mastering chaos actually becomes the art of storytelling. 3 stories to be more precise. The stories we tell ourselves, the stories we tell others, and now we absorb the stories told to us. But before we work on these stories, we need to first be able to listen to them. And most of us can't. There's simply too much noise right now. On average, we make around 15,000 decisions a day, consciously and unconsciously. Daniel Kahneman called it decision fatigue in his book, Thinking Fast and Slow, meaning the more decisions we make, the worse the decision-making process becomes. So the first stage of mastering your own chaos, we need to first clean up the mess inside of your mind, to separate what truly matters with what is just noise. And once we do it, the next challenge comes along. You need to make sure that the mind itself doesn't become a mess all over again next week. And here comes the second stage. To protect ourselves from external sources of chaos. To learn to create boundaries. To say no. No to a person, a commitment, and honestly, even sometimes yourself. And this is when things truly start to become challenging. Because even if you decide to change, that doesn't mean the world around us will automatically follow. Your family, friends, colleagues are still going to be living their natural lives, still trying to keep up in an age of chaos. So even if you are strong enough to challenge the status quo and hold those boundaries to protect yourself from external sources of chaos, you would expect at the very least that the noise would get quieter. It actually gets louder. Your voices get louder. The ones that say, am I being too harsh? Why do I need to do this by myself? Who do I even think I am to try to change? This is when we enter the third stage, to confront the chaos of oneself. Psychology, Shirzad Chaminé calls these voices inner saboteurs, and they can easily feel like your worst enemy. They are the chaos from within. However, they are not your enemies. They were once trying to protect you. A child who learned that love was conditional didn't choose to become a perfectionist. It was a survival skill, to feel loved, to feel safe. But if we live in a society obsessed with certainty and perfection, we don't really have time or even patience for what we might call flaws. But let me ask you something. What if the path of mastering chaos isn't a path of self-development? What if there's nothing missing in you? And instead, in taking the words of psychiatrist Gabor Mate, what if this is not a path of self-recovery? This is when we enter the fourth stage. To recover all parts within ourselves, each with its own imperfections, fears, and dreams. And that takes so much courage. Not courage in the sense of jumping out of a plane. I actually done quite a few times, and I almost died once, but that's a story for another time. Real courage is quieter. It is the ability to sit in the discomfort, in the void, long enough to challenge the stories you're telling yourself and to others. And only then we have the necessary foundations to manage the chaos from within and to manage the chaos that's coming from the outside. Only then we have the necessary foundations to enter the fifth stage, to become a true leader of change. Not leader in the sense of becoming a CEO, but to lead your life, decisions, relationships, and yes, of course, for some of you, entire organizations. But let's not make any mistake here. The moment we all walk out of this room, the emails are going to still be piling up. The self-doubt is still going to be there. The beautiful, exhausting mess of being alive. And that's not going away. And to be perfectly honest with you guys, this is also an oversimplification of an incredibly complex process of changing entire mindsets and cultures. But my goal was never to give you a magic pill to solve all your problems. My goal, since the moment I stood up into this little red circle, was to focus only on the first step of the journey to master your chaos. The one that people normally don't talk about. Acceptance. To confidently say, I am in chaos. To confidently say, I am chaos. Okay? And that's not an easy step to take whatsoever, especially when the world around us seems to be collapsing so much. But there is hope. Hope to look into the darkness, try to find the tiniest cracks of light, and to not let them go. So start here, today, to master the chaos of oneself. Thank you.